Welcome to UPSCpractice.com. Let's learn about Bitcoin. What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a digital currency created in January 2009. It follows the ideas set out in a white paper by the mysterious and pseudonymous Satoshi Nakamoto. The identity of the person or persons who created the technology is still a mystery. Bitcoin offers the promise of lower transaction fees than traditional online payment mechanisms. And unlike government-issued currencies, it is operated by a decentralized authority. Bitcoin is a type of cryptocurrency, which means there is no physical Bitcoin and only balances are kept on a public ledger that everyone has transparent access to. All Bitcoin transactions are verified by a massive amount of computing power, and Bitcoin is not issued or backed by any banks or governments, nor is an individual Bitcoin valuable as a commodity. Despite it not being legal tender in most parts of the world, Bitcoin is very popular and has triggered the launch of hundreds of other cryptocurrencies collectively referred to as altcoins. Bitcoin is commonly abbreviated as BTC. Let's understand Bitcoin. The Bitcoin system is a collection of computers, also referred to as nodes or miners, that all run Bitcoin's code and store its blockchain. Metaphorically, a blockchain can be thought of as a collection of blocks. In each block is a collection of transactions. Because all the computers running the blockchain have the same list of blocks and transactions and can transparently see these new blocks being filled with new Bitcoin transactions, no one can cheat the system. So, there is no physical existence or value of Bitcoin, and that is one of the reasons why governments and banks would not be allowing it anytime soon to replace the fiat currency. Let's take a look at what some of the top executives of the biggest banks are saying. JP Morgan is a global leader in financial services offering solutions around the world. Jamie Dimon is the CEO of JP Morgan Bank. Let's listen to what he has to say about Bitcoin.
I could care less about Bitcoin. I don't know why I said anything about it. The blockchain is a technology, which is a good technology. We actually use it. It will be used for a lot of different things. God bless the blockchain. Cryptocurrencies and digital currencies, I think are also fine. JP Morgan moves $6 trillion around the world every day. We don't do it in cash. It's done digitally. If it can be done digitally with the blockchain, so be it. But it'll still be a dollar cryptocurrency. What I have an issue with is a non-fiat cryptocurrency. Dollar, so crypto, sterling, euro, yen, they're all fine. I don't personally understand the value of something that has no actual value. You all can do whatever you want, and I don't care.
So what happens with Bitcoin is if an attack is to happen, Bitcoin miners, the people who take part in the Bitcoin network with their computers, will likely fork to a new blockchain, making the effort the bad actor put forth to achieve the attack a waste. Anyone, whether they run a Bitcoin node or not, can see these transactions occurring in real time. To achieve a nefarious act, a bad actor would need to operate 51%, that is more than half the majority of the computing power that makes up Bitcoin. Bitcoin had around 10,000 nodes as of June 2021, and that number was growing, making such an attack quite unlikely. And as more and more people continue to buy Bitcoin, the price of the coin keeps on increasing. Let's hear what Jamie Dimon had to say about it.
All right, that sounds definitive. Bitcoin hit a new high today.
I could care less what Bitcoin trades for, how it trades, why it trades, who trades it. If you're stupid enough to buy it, you'll pay the price for it one day. I've also told people that it can trade at $100,000 before it trades to zero. So tulip bulbs traded for $75,000 once, something like that. The only value of a Bitcoin is what the other guy will pay for. And I think that, honestly, I think there's a good chance that Bitcoin, a lot of the buyers out there are up there jazzing up every day so that maybe you'll buy it too and take them out. And I quite mean that, by the way. You know, these people are very good at manipulating the press these days and getting news out. And so every day, you have CNBC, nonstop Bitcoin. Who cares about Bitcoin? I mean, the world's economy is so big. We move, JP Morgan alone, these companies, $6 trillion. We move all this money. And Bitcoin in total is all these currencies are $50 billion, maybe $1 billion trades a day.
So why are banks and governments so wary about Bitcoin? Bitcoin claims that it is the first decentralized peer-to-peer payment network that is powered by its users with no central authority or middlemen. That lack of central authority is the primary reason governments are afraid of the cryptocurrency. To understand this fear, it is important to know a little bit about governments and conventional currencies. Who do we trust and what do we trust? Fiat, F-I-A-T, is a term used to describe the conventional currencies that are issued by governments. Fiat currencies have value because governments say they do. To an increasing number of people, that promise means nothing. After all, fiat currencies are not backed by any tangible assets. We can't return the currency to the government in exchange for a bar of gold or silver, a can of beans, a pack of cigarettes, or any other items that might have value to us. Fiat currencies are backed by the full faith and credit of the government that issued them and nothing more. If we want gold, silver, beans, or smoke, we need to exchange our fiat currency with a person or entity that possesses the item we want. Why does control matter? Governments control fiat currencies. They use central banks to issue or destroy money out of thin air, using what is known as monetary policy to exert economic influence. Governments also dictate how fiat currencies can be transferred, enabling them to track currency movement, dictate who profits from that movement, collect taxes on it, and trace criminal activity. All of this control is lost when non-government bodies create their own currencies. Control over currency has many downstream impacts, perhaps most notably to a nation's fiscal policy, business environment, and efforts to control crime. Though each of these topics is broad and deep enough to fill volumes, a brief overview can be helpful to provide insight into the general concept. Fiscal policy. Though the potential for crime captures the public's attention, the role currency plays in a nation's monetary policy has the potential to have a far greater impact. Because governments intentionally increase or restrict the amount of money circulating in an economy to stimulate investment and spending, generate jobs, or avoid out-of-control inflation and recession, control over currency is an enormous concern. It's also an extraordinarily complex topic. So what is the business of Bitcoin? Bitcoin users don't need the existing banking system, which is why banking system professionals hate Bitcoin. The currency is created in cyberspace when so-called miners use the power of their computers to solve complex algorithms that serve as verification for Bitcoin transactions. Let's see what the opinion is of the banking professionals.
And the other thing I've always made of Bitcoin, governments, and this is not a technological statement, governments are going to crush it one day. Governments like to know where the money is, who has it, and what you're doing with it. And in case you haven't noticed. Okay? And governments like to control their currency. like to control their own economy. So China's already put curbs on it. Japan, they say Japan accepted Bitcoin. No, they didn't. What I gathered Japan did was they called it J-coin. It's a yen cryptocurrency. It's not a non-fiat. There's a big difference. People have said legitimately, okay, it's close to gold. Not really. Gold is limited and has been around a long time, and it's close to a fiat currency. Not really. A fiat currency is where the government says this is your legal tender. You have to give it and accept it. And there's a central bank. Now, of course, they can misuse it, the central bank, and inflate it. So there is a use case for Bitcoin. If you live in Venezuela, North Korea, or if you're a criminal.
The important thing about Bitcoin is also crime concerns. Much has been written about virtual currency and crime. That is enough to recap the issue by stating that untraceable financial transactions facilitate crime. Drug trafficking, prostitution, terrorism, money laundering, tax evasion, and other illegal and subversive activity all benefit from the ability to move money in untraceable ways. The now defunct Silk Road online drug market is a case in point. Its founders credits Bitcoin with its success. Aside from the headline-grabbing fact that virtual currencies can and are used to engage in a wide range of illegal activities, there is a legitimate theoretical argument in favor of their use. It is based on the reality that central banks tinkering with the money supply had induced recessions, exacerbated unemployment, and given rise to a global banking system based on profiteering and corruption. We need to look only as far as the mortgage market shenanigans underpinning the financial crisis of 2008 for insight into why disaffected consumers everywhere would support the efforts of anonymous programmers in using Bitcoin and subverting a system that has done them no favors. These ideas are not new. The Austrian school, a school of economic thought founded in 1871, holds among its core tenets the idea that economic manipulation by central banks is not beneficial. Let's listen to Raghuram Rajan. Raghuram Govinda Rajan is an Indian economist and a distinguished service professor of finance at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. Between 2003 and 2006, Raghuram Rajan was the chief economist and director of research at the International Monetary Fund. From September 2013 to September 2016, Raghuram Rajan was the 23rd governor of the Reserve Bank of India. In 2015, during his tenure at the RBI, he became the vice chairman of the Bank for International Settlements. Let's hear the views of Raghuram Rajan on Bitcoin and fiat currency.
So, first, should we shift away from paper currency? From an economy-wide perspective, the answer is yes, because there are transaction costs in making these paper currencies, in getting them to the right place, in pulling out bad currency, and also it's much harder tracking them. So if you do a transaction in cash, this is why a lot of black money transactions are done in cash, very hard for the tax authorities to get a hold of them. Okay, so that suggests there may be some value to moving it to traceable electronic currency. Now, that's as far as the economy goes. As far as central bank goes, it's a very bad idea, because the way we make our money, the reason we paid 67,000 crores in dividends to the government last year was because people hold currency and don't ask us for a return on it. And then we can invest the currency that we issue in things like government bonds, in things like foreign exchange reserves, all of which pay something. Foreign exchange reserves much less than they used to, because interest rates across the world are very low, but government bonds are still paying 7.6% as of today. So that's great. And so we make that money, we pass it on to the government. We keep a little bit for our expenses. If we moved entirely to electronic currency, that revenue, which is called senior age revenue, would disappear, and we'd have to ask the government to finance us rather than us financing the government. Okay, so that's a different relationship from the one that currently exists. As far as non-traceable currency, decentralized currency of the kind that Bitcoin represents, essentially the most important aspect of Bitcoin is the decentralized ledger. That different people maintain ledgers. There's no centralized ledger that can be attacked and changed. So all these different decentralized ledgers of transactions that have taken place are updated independently. And so you can verify transactions without somebody at the center necessarily needing to be honest and doing everything there. So a lot of people are taken in by that idea and want to see how that idea can be expanded. But Bitcoin itself has a problem which is implicit in your question, which is the value of Bitcoin is highly variable. Now, for a currency, you typically want it to preserve value. It's a store of value. And if it's highly variable, you don't know tomorrow if it's going to be half its value today. You're not so happy holding it as a currency. One of the major attractions of Bitcoin is that it's hidden to the investigative agencies. You know, New Silk Road was one of the biggest users of Bitcoin, it was a shop that sold drugs, illegal drugs. So that aspect of these electronic currencies goes entirely against the aspect we want, which is that it should be traceable so that we can actually tax those transactions. So I don't know how this will play out. We certainly can issue a variety of electronic currencies. In a sense, your credit card is a form of electronic currency. But over time, there will be competition between the decentralized currency and the centralized currency. My sense is ultimately either it has to be very useful for transaction costs, or we have to set up something that looks like a central bank to manage that currency. Otherwise, people will not have confidence in the value of that currency. So we may be back to where we started eventually, but let's see.
So like any investment, Bitcoin values can fluctuate. So there is a market risk. Indeed, the value of the currency has seen wild swings in price over its short existence. Subject to high volume buying and selling on exchanges, it has a high sensitivity to any newsworthy events. If fewer people begin to accept Bitcoin as a currency, these digital units may lose value and could become worthless. Indeed, there was a speculation that the Bitcoin bubble had burst when the price declined from its all-time high during the cryptocurrency rush in late 2017 and early 2018. But is the term bubble actually applicable to Bitcoin? Let's listen to John McAfee, the founder and former CEO of McAfee Company.
Well, first and foremost, Bitcoin is not a fiat currency. It costs over $1,000 to create a Bitcoin today in electricity and computing costs. Second, the value of Bitcoin is linked to the number of users and the number of transactions. It is not a speculative investment, even though it is being used as such by many people. As the Bitcoin network grows, the value of Bitcoin grows. As people move into Bitcoin for payments and receipts, they stop using US dollars, euros, Chinese yuan, which in the long term devalues these currencies. So what you're seeing is more of a currency devaluation than a bubble in Bitcoin. As more people use it, it has more intrinsic value. And again, the cost of producing a Bitcoin increases with the value of the Bitcoin. So this is not something that we're pulling out of thin air. Mm-hmm. This is something that's created with massive amounts of electricity and computing power.
There are also concerns about the speed of transaction with Bitcoin and how realistic it is in day-to-day use. Let's listen what John McAfee had to say regarding this.
Well, keep in mind, as Bitcoin grows and grows in value, other currencies, national currencies, are going to decline. So the advantage to using Bitcoin, the advantages are huge. If I do a wire transfer, it'll take me 24 hours. If I do a Bitcoin transfer, it takes me 30 seconds. It is instantaneous. I know people who do not use any other currency now other than Bitcoin. They buy their houses, their cars, everything using Bitcoin by connecting to other users who sell the things that they need. As more and more people use this, what will happen to national currencies? They will obviously devalue. They have to. So that 500,000 includes a massive devaluation in the US dollar, which absolutely has to come if Bitcoin continues to grow at its current rate.
So, we have to wait and see how the fiat and the non-fiat decentralized currencies work out in the future. Thank you very much for listening to this article. For more such articles, get the UPSC Practice app from the App Store.